out there in YouTube land, Blab land, and this is the pre-workup prior to the iTunes and the Stitcher Radio workup. Welcome to Meet the People's Press. This is the first episode. And in this episode, a little background before we get into it. I have a panel, and we're going to be reviewing Meet the Press weekly on Sunday. Probably be around 10 o'clock live Pacific time, and you'll find us at Podcaster's Home, Politics of Success, and eventually we do have the domain Meet the People's Press. But this is the first show. We're getting going, and we're going to see how it all comes out. We have a lot of interest, a lot of great panel will be coming on, and I want to introduce them right now. First of all, one of our main panelists, Nicholas Hernandez. Actually, Nicholas Hernandez coming to us from Laguna Beach. It's Dr. Nicholas Hernandez. And, of course, he got his doctorate from Chapman and honorary. He's one of the top artists down in the Southland. And he is on the Laguna Beach Democrat Club, one of the board members. Thanks, Nick, for coming on.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And we have Rick Fineberg. Rick Fineberg is coming to us from Reno, Nevada. Rick is a retired California attorney. He came over here. He's run for the 25th Assembly, and he ran against, this is what's amazing, in a primary. He ran against the Republican speaker. He's a Constitutionalist Republican, and he'll add that other little flavor. And finally, we have Jonathan Denwood from WP Tonic. He is our tech guy in the background. Jonathan is a SaaS developer and a well-known in Reno, Nevada for technology. And Jonathan is a Democrat Christian Socialist, originally from England with backgrounds with the church and so on and so forth. Well, folks, that's a long intro. Thank you for coming on. And here we're going to get ready to go. So the format today, we're going to be covering a couple things. We had a quick little intro. They had the skit from Saturday Night Live, Bernie Sanders, and some of the talk about the polls. Then we won't go into Ted Cruz, Benghazi, Afghanistan, Joe Biden, and the differences between Republican and Democrat. We've got about 45 minutes to do this. We're going to open it up at the end, a couple of seats for other folks to come in. So without further ado, Nick, you had some comments about the opening, sort of shocked you a little bit about the opening.
Yeah,
statement.
The first thing that was said was about the strong showing that Hillary Clinton had at the debates, which right away upset me because it's not the truth, and it shows what the mainstream media, how they completely skew the facts about what happened at the debate. On Fox News, their polls, the New York Times, Facebook polls during and after the debate, the Grudge poll, they were all, the minimum was 60% Bernie up to 75% Bernie. And so, but the next day, CNN, and even CNN's poll was said 74% Bernie. All of them said that Hillary won it hands down. That's not the truth. And that's what's being fed to the American people. So that is one really upsetting point to me. I see it in the papers and I see it on TV constantly. They're just saying, oh, Bernie has no chance. The one thing that did happen at the very end, the commentator did say that he thought that the American Democrats are lusting for Bernie. It's the first thing, but he contradicted himself after, because the first thing he said was Hillary made such a strong showing. And that skewing of the facts that the American media is doing right now is really a disturbing element to me.
Rick, do you have any comment?
I'm not surprised. I think we've seen the powers that be. They have their favorites. Jeb Bush on the Republican side, Hillary on the Democrat side. I'm kind of surprised. It's my understanding that Bernie Sanders is still a registered independent. He's not. He doesn't call himself a Democrat. So I'm kind of surprised that he's on the stage with all the Democrats and all the Democrats.
No, he re-registered as a Democrat.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Absolutely. So he can run on the Democratic ticket. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the primary at all.
Gotcha.
By the rules. So he calls himself a socialist Democrat. And socialist is defined by the attempt for social justice. And I don't see, it's pretty hard to argue with wanting social justice for all Americans, for all humans. Social justice is what we're trying to do here.
Well, I'm sure.
It's a very good job.
Sure, Rick will have a go.
Well, I partially agree with Nick, and I partially disagree with him. Even though I don't like saying this, I actually think Hillary did a pretty good job, a surprisingly good job. I actually think it was 50-50 between her and just my mind's gone blank.
Sanders.
Bernie
Sanders.
Between her and Bernie.
It's too early for Jonathan. Too much code last night.
But it doesn't really matter how well he does. He's not going to be the Democratic candidate. It's as simple as that. He's a stalking horse. He signed the Democratic Party is corrupt. It's been paid off by Wall Street. She sucked up all the money. He's there to be the kind of public face of the Democratic Party, and then he will drop and she will become the candidate of the Democratic Party, and the people that bought her will be really happy. Yeah.
Hey, for the listeners out there, Jonathan is equally kind to the Republican Party as the Democrats. So, hey, I think this is a good time to go on a couple more minutes on this topic, because what we've seen, it appears, we've had huge rallies with Bernie Sanders, and at the end they talked about his constituency or the universities, and I forgot who the others were, that are getting such these large people coming out, the younger people they're igniting. Or Hillary doesn't have that crowd, but he does have huge numbers. When Hillary shows up, she has very small numbers. Personally, I try to stay neutral here. I try.
Can I say something, Bill? Numbers doesn't matter. It's money that matters. Money talks.
I will disagree.
Money
I'll tell you
talks
why,
in America, and greenbacks talk a lot. You can get all the numbers you like, but you're not going to end up being the candidate.
Well, let me jump in on this briefly. I agree with Jonathan. I don't think that Bernie Sanders has a chance. And the reason is that he's a true socialist. When he talks about being against the Federal Reserve and the central banks and the Wall Street establishment, that flies in the face of all of the Hillary base and support. She is the penultimate crony capitalist, and she has gone into bed with them and with Wall Street, and that's where she gets a lot of her support. And because Bernie Sanders is so committed to being against Wall Street, they're not going to put up with that.
There's no doubt in my mind. One of the theories is the right and the left, the central Republicans and the Democrats are really the same. And we'll talk about that later in the show, because there was some discussion about how the Republican leadership has really been more Democrat than Republican at the very top. And a lot of the legislation would have not gone through under a Democrat-led House because the Republicans' leadership just pushed in a very liberal agenda. So there was some talk later on in the show. Anything else as we wrap up on this first element about the outcome? Interesting thoughts and dialogue. Nick, anything you want to wrap up? I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, I obviously disagree with the other two fellas here. Bernie has gotten more donations, small donations, and those numbers do matter. The people are railing against all this money. That's why he's getting the support he's getting. People don't like Citizens United. People don't like the oligarchy that has emerged. And Bernie will, I believe, be the candidate. And so many people just automatically say, well, he doesn't have a chance. Well, at the very beginning, nobody ever dreamt that he would be getting the support that he's getting. He's gotten more donations than all the other candidates put together. They're small, but he's still making a lot of money. And when I was at his rally, the millennials were out in force. I saw 17,500 people at the sports arena with 10,000 people outside and no media coverage. And he's doing this across the country. And
I've got to say, he's doing a perfect social media campaign. There's no doubt in my mind.
And I believe donations equal votes.
I think small donations definitely equal votes. I think things are changing a little bit, and we'll talk about this later. So when we talk about Biden, I want to talk about the strategy that can actually get him elected. But that's going to be about not spending money. He's not spending money. It can work for any candidate too. So going on, the next section we got into, it was Ted Cruz. They had an interview about Ted Cruz. I really don't know where to go here on Ted Cruz. Rick, do you want to lead the way with Ted Cruz?
Sure. Of the entire field, Cruz is probably my number one pick. And I believe that even though Jonathan, be kind.
Can't laugh.
I think he's aptly posed himself as an outsider. He's been criticized soundly by the establishment. They try to marginalize him, but he has, I think, expressed the anger that the electorate is feeling and the frustration that they're experiencing when we talk about the body politic. I think whether you're on one side of the spectrum or the other, the thing that characterizes the frustration right now is that politicians promise one thing to be elected and they do exactly the opposite when they get to Washington. There are all sorts of reasons why that may happen: money, corruption, whatever, combination of the two. The fact is that people are sick and tired of having their elected representatives completely ignore the will of the people. And I think that's what Ted Cruz is tapping into. He mentioned the fact that Republicans were elected with a promise to repeal Obamacare, to reduce the size of government, to reduce taxes. Instead, they passed the Omnibus bill. They funded Obamacare. They funded amnesty. They funded Planned Parenthood, and they confirmed Loretta Lynch.
No, things happen in this congressional session with Republican leadership that would have never happened to Democrat leadership with the votes. I mean, because the Republicans actually were more Democrat than were Republican, at least the leadership. And that seems the commonality. Hey, real fast, stepping back, they talked about the polls this week. I think if anyone copied those down, I think it was 24 Trump, 23 Carson, 10 Cruz, and 9 and 8. I didn't get the combinations who was 9 and 8. Rubio is one of those. I'm not sure who the other one was.
Cruz was 10.
Cruz was 10 for sure, but then there was an 8 and a 9. But going on, Nick, how do you feel about the interview with Cruz?
My first impression, I've been to a lot of continents and countries around the world, and Americans, for the most part, are amazing. They're wonderful. But every so often, you see this arrogant, quote, ugly American. And the first thing that you see is this incredible look of arrogance on their face, this false sense of superiority. And it is ugly. And when I look at, there's a few candidates, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, and Carly Fiorina, and all I see on their face is arrogance. I have absolutely no trust for their competency. And, Cruz will not work with the Republicans. That's been shown. And if you go into Washington, it's a shark tank. And if you think that you can buck the whole system, you're going to end up doing nothing. You're going to end up.
Yeah, but what the problem is, Nick, what they're saying is a lot of Republicans promised certain things and they didn't mean it at all who got elected. And that's the biggest problem with the Republican Party. Their constituency believes one way. So we'll find out how they're aligning after this primary. For example, right now, between Cruz, Carson, and Trump, they have 60% of the vote.
Well, that's the Republican vote. Party. And not all Republicans are as right wing as what some of the right wing are claiming. I'd say that the bulk of the Republican Party is not as right as Cruz. And so
both the right and the left right now,
and they also
both the right and the left right now are tired of the center because they're all controlled by the same people. The special
Can I say something, Bill?
Go ahead, John.
I just wanted 2 points about Bernie. Bernie would have had a much more credibility if he had decided to run as an independent. He decided not to because he did a deal with the Democratic Party in Vermont. For a number of years, they haven't really put a candidate in front of him. He also has been given a number of chairmanships of high.
Right.
He's just done the deal, but his chances of actually becoming the Democratic candidate are next to nothing.
Jonathan, you might want to move a couple inches closer.
When it comes to Cruz, it's the dysfunction of the right. It's this.
Well, Cruz only has 10% right
something
now.
deeper, actually. They keep saying he's an outsider. They get these people that are embedded into the system. He's been a senator. I don't know if he's a senator but he's been part of the Republican setup for a long time. They've all sipped the poison. They've all.
I think this is his first 6 years as senator.
Well, he's the people behind him, the money behind him.
He does have money. He does have some money.
He's sipped the same poison as Hillary. Any top candidate from either party have been bought by Wall Street. They get their money from Wall Street.
Not Bernie.
Well,
no, Bernie Sanders.
Well, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because he ain't going to be the candidate, so it doesn't really matter.
That's your opinion.
Well, the oligarchy does not want Cruz, nor the oligarchy, the center does not want Sanders. There's no doubt there.
It's not really. It's not really about conservatism or here is called you're progressive. It's not really about it. It's about are you Are you part of the corporate clique and you're corrupt? Or are you going to fight for your country? It's getting really, it doesn't really matter if you're left or right. It matters if you believe in the Constitution and you believe in democracy, or you're going to be paid off and work for these crony, that are running things.
You're beginning to sound like an extremist, Jonathan.
I agree with you, Jonathan. They're not sipping poison; they're sipping Kool-Aid. It's a death knell if they keep taking this money, and if they keep bending to the corporate will. That's going to be our ruin right there. And I don't believe they're all powerful. I believe in the vote. I believe in democracy, and I believe that there's a strong opportunity to get Wall Street, the bankers, and the media put in their place. And I think it's about time.
So, Rick, we started you with Ted Cruz. Let's finish up Ted Cruz and go on to Benghazi and that investigation. Any final thoughts, Rick?
Just that I think Cruz is trying to position himself as an outsider. He's certainly been treated like an outsider. I know that all of my friends that are in Congress that I am in communication with have criticized him severely for leading the attempts to shut down the government over Obamacare and funding of Planned Parenthood and other stands that he's taken. So he's certainly not towing the U.S. Chamber of Commerce line, and that's where he's positioning himself.
So that's very good. Well, let's go on now. And one thing, though, we had a couple comments from the listeners, for those watching live, and mainly they believe Democrat women want Bernie Sanders. Women are leaning towards Bernie Sanders. A lot are moving away. I'll disagree with that a little bit. I think Hillary has a strong following of women. And also there is two machines within the Democrat Party we didn't talk about. You've got the Obama machine, which we'll talk about later, which is Chicago, and you've got the Clinton machine, and that's one of the big elements. And also some support for Bernie coming in for her stand on ADA and other elements. So thank you out there from the listeners. Going on to Benghazi. Benghazi's been going on for a long, long time. Full disclosure, on 11 September 2012, I was in the 3-star headquarters in Afghanistan when the incident happened. I'd gone to bed thinking things were okay. They weren't. So
I'm with you, Jonathan.
So who wants to lead off in Benghazi?
I'll start it off. Stop, Jonathan. Come on. Look, Benghazi was a terrible tragedy, and there's some elements of it that simply can't be ignored. What, Jonathan? Look, we were lied to about what happened following the death of members of the CIA, special forces, and our own ambassador to Libya. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State during Benghazi, had the audacity to blame the attack on a video, a B video that no one ever saw. And then she had Susan Rice come out and tell the American people with a straight face for weeks that this whole thing was a spontaneous riot incited by a video, and it was a damn lie. There are military officers within the administration that have absolutely confirmed that a stand-down order was given, that Hillary ignored requests for security, that aid wasn't given. And, you know, so that's the real issue. Right now, because of the stupidity and the ignorance expressed in the remark of Kevin McCarthy, Hillary has taken advantage of his inane comments and calling the entire investigation political, and just an attempt to put together to bring her numbers down. Well, the committee was formed before she even decided to run for office. So, you know, but the point is that the committee is trying to be turned into a political thing, and the Democrats have taken every possibility they can to withhold information, withhold emails, withhold disclosures. They mentioned on Meet the Press that it was just last week that they got emails involving Chris Stevens, just last week. So,
you know, one of the things about the Benghazi Committee, first of all, it's not bipartisan, and there were, as it stated on Meet the Press, there were no rules. And there's a real question, why was a Republican, Trey Gowdy, who was fighting for an impartial investigation, immediately kicked off as soon as he said, I want an impartial, factual investigation, and they kicked him off immediately. And, you know, it was a terrible tragedy for sure. But there are so many other more important things. Like Bernie said, I'm tired of those damn emails. So much attention has been given to him. What are you going to do? What's the outcome? What good is the country going to get from this? The $4.5 million that's spent, and it'll probably be another couple of $1 million by the time they're done. And this money could go to any number of places. So this is a joke. It's you're right. It's a tragedy when anybody gets killed. But, you know, during this hour that we're speaking, about 900 people are going to die from starvation. These are much more important issues than Benghazi and these stupid emails. You know, we've got much bigger problems to handle. Okay? So I'd say let's move on and get to some more appropriate governance. And let's move on to topics that really count.
Jonathan? You're sleeping, okay.
I've got nothing of any interest to say about the subject.
Okay, one of the persons on the committee is Lieutenant General retired Dana Chipman. He and I went to West Point together. We went to infantry school together. He went off, became an attorney within the military in Top Jag. He's one of the investigators. One thing I'll say about Benghazi, at the time I had a top secret clearance, so I can't go into a lot of detail. But what I do want to say, and I saw this months ago, that when I found out that she had a private server and that she was communicating back and forth on that private server, I would have to think that most of the things that she did or does were classified. Now, if I were to do that, or if I would leach any classified from a classified server, bridging it over into a non-classified server, I would go to jail. There's no question if I was the bridging officer to some extent.
Surprised?
But listen real fast. Petraeus went to jail for a little tiny notebook. Not jail, but he was convicted for a little notebook and a note. If I did what she did, now she's higher than I was. I was a fairly high level. I was a 15, GS-15, civil military operations, doing governance. She, if I did what she did, I would go to jail.
Bill,
sure.
I totally agree with you, but why is we're dealing with Hillary Clinton here? All she needs is a broom, a hat, and a black cat, and she'd be well set. It's Hillary Clinton, for God's sake. You know, she couldn't even walk straight. You know.
Now, I don't think she's going to get any high cover from the Obama administration because there's a war between Obama, Chicago Democrats, and the Clinton Democrats. There's a little war going on out there, I think. And what's going to happen, in my book, and we're going to talk about this later, Biden's running a real smart race. He's running, by the way. He's running a smart race. He's not spending any money. He's using Air Force Two to get around. And he's just waiting for it to get worse. Even if it hasn't come out yet in investigations, I have to think this is not going to turn out well for Hillary Clinton having an FBI investigation right now going on. So that said, we'll take everything else. Let's drive on now. Afghanistan was the next one. Benghazi to Afghanistan. Policy in Afghanistan. Jonathan, let you lead off in Afghanistan. The war mongrel. Jonathan Denwood.
The war mongrel.
You're giving you a hard time.
What do you mean by that, Bill?
Socialist Christian Democrat, Democratic Socialist Christian, or whatever.
It's a Democratic Christian Socialist.
Those words don't naturally flow out of my mouth. I'm sorry.
About 2/3 of Europeans would classify him as that.
Yep. Okay. Tell me what you think about Afghanistan. The coalition forces, we had a lot of folks there.
It's
French, British, Americans.
spent a lot of money, killed a lot of people, caused a lot of misery, not achieved much.
Yeah, but we were attacked from within Afghanistan.
No, you were attacked by Saudi Arabia.
True, there were 19 people were Saudis.
22 pages of the report have never been published about the Saudi Arabian government's involvement.
But Bin Laden was in Afghanistan.
So what? He gave the Taliban a load of money and paid them off. I doubt if they had any idea what he was really up to. I'd be really surprised.
Actually, the Saudis and us both gave a lot of money to the Taliban when we were fighting the Russians.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I doubt if I don't know for sure, but I'd be very surprised if they really, really knew what he was up to. If they had known, I would imagine they would have kicked him out. But, the Saudi government had more involvement in that attack than Afghanistan did.
Why do we never talk about the real reason Russia was there and the real reason the United States is there now? The precious minerals that are used for our computers. Those are the things that we're harvesting. It's just like
the Chinese. No, the Chinese are the ones who are mining.
And the Chinese. There's a big war over those minerals, and that's what.
There's no war. The Chinese through the. I was there when this happened, firsthand witness. The Afghan government is corrupt. There's no doubt it's corrupt. It's extremely corrupt.
So one way of putting it.
I forgot which minister had to leave the country after he sold all the treaties, after he sold all the mineral rights to China. But China basically has a great number of mineral rights for Afghanistan. And they have there's a big copper mine that they're developing right now. They're contemplating putting in a railroad, which will not work.
So here's the thing that's always fascinated me about Afghanistan and the Middle East. We've had Iraq, which was the bad war, and then we had Afghanistan, which was the good war, right?
True.
Oh, come on. Obama was all for Afghanistan. The entire Democrat Party was all for Afghanistan. It was touted, and everybody said it was just a wonderful thing. We had reason to go into Afghanistan, but Iraq was just built on lies. There were problems and issues with going into both places.
Yeah, true. Now the gist of it was, the discussion was, Obama has decided to leave 9,800 Americans in Afghanistan at least another year, and then past that, he's committed to leaving some forces there. We had 100,000 people to build up. Let me talk. I was back there before the buildup, during the buildup, and I left during the end of the buildup in late 2012, December 2012. I actually physically left Afghanistan for my last tour of 4. Joe Biden, I'm going to give Joe Biden a big compliment here. I'm a special forces guy in the background. Joe Biden was the one who was preaching and telling folks, do not do the surge, do not build up. Focus at what we call counterterrorism. That's where we focus at building the Afghan army. We focus at doing direct action and killing the bad guys with small forces and intelligence. And that's called direct action counterterrorism. What we're doing was COIN, which is a Petraeus document, counterinsurgency, which they used in Iran, which means you put 100,000 people in there, you stabilize it with American troops. When you lose American troops when that happens, it's a fake, false. The system is you can build safety belts and then push people out with our troops. Well, that's extraordinarily expensive to put 100,000 troops in any country, in which we had in 2 different countries. And it takes a lot of, it puts stress on the reserve and on the active duty and on the American people and everybody. The contractors love it because it's a lot of money for the contractors in the industrial defense system. But Biden was the only one I remember who was constantly preaching counterterrorism, which is a smaller force. And what you need it in Africa, you need it in Iraq, you need it in Afghanistan. They did not do a counterterrorism policy in Iran. They did not. They completely pulled out, total failure, no advice, no guidance. In Afghanistan, I think they're learning from those lessons. But this is a very dangerous part of the world. We could go on. We could have a special about the Middle East and Southeast Asia, or in the Southeast, even all the way over into Asia, into deep Asia. There's problems throughout that world, and that's another area. But so, Nick, you don't want the buildup. Cruz doesn't want. Cruz is an isolationist. Jonathan, you said really what did you say, Rick?
Well, I would agree with what you said, Bill. A different kind of action that's going on there, and the government is corrupt, as is ours on so many levels. And so the solution is a real difficult. Too many players, too many different people with different agendas, and I don't have a solution. You know, I don't really understand everything that's going on there. But I would say that just like what you said about getting the bad guys and just a holding tactic so our troops are in harm's way doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm no expert.
I mean, it's a tough situation. There's a lot of different opinions. It's a different kind of war right now in Syria, so on and so forth. But anyway, I think at least right now, 216, don't overplay your cards, leave some forces there. I think it was good. Rick, which bit
do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Afghanistan or do you want to talk about the Middle East?
Middle East for a different story. They just talked about Afghanistan and the build-up to that.
I don't know for sure. Who knows about Afghanistan? I've come to the conclusion that a lot of America's policy around Afghanistan is driven by their relationship with Pakistan and
India, believe it or not.
Well, you got a rather unstable country where one of the largest Islamic populations, and that country has nuclear weapons.
Pakistan.
It has nuclear weapons. It's consistently been unstable. It's been consistently run by the military. It's consistently been in a kind of Cold War with its major neighbour, and it's consistently involved itself with the support, sometimes with the money of America in Afghanistan's internal political environment. And this country, Pakistan, is a really major threat to the United States of America, because if it becomes totally unstable, there's always the chance that an Islamic terrorist group will get the ultimate weapon and use it against America. It's a nightmare. And I think this has been a driving cause for concern in anybody in the high of the American government that's got any brains.
Bill, correct me if I'm wrong on this. In some of the research I've done concerning Pakistan, is that the government, is very unstable, but the military arm has been very stable. And that actually our government has not been so afraid of their military, because the military, they recognize that if a radical element got a hold of some of the nuclear weapons, it would be devastating for the country and for their military. So they are probably the most stable part of the Pakistani, country. So, I mean, is that true?
I'd say you're right on. I don't know if you remember, but when I was going through Special Forces School many, many years ago, I brought a Pakistani officer back home for a while after the course he went through with me. So we're very close. We have a lot of relationships, but I think that's pretty accurate. Both of you, I think, are accurate. The fear is nuclear weapons getting in the wrong hands. Even though they didn't talk about it today, but Iran is another discussion. They talked a little bit about foreign policy, but not a whole lot. Let's go on now. Joe Biden's race. That's the fourth element before we get to the final element. Joe Biden's race. What an interesting race. Jonathan's okay. Nick, you lead it off. Jonathan's like still.
Well,
speaking.
I agree that Joe Biden has been running a sort of de facto presidency campaign. He's been waiting for the time when he may or may not jump in. I'm not sure what his agenda is. I do know that he's one of the most respected men on the Hill, and he's been very, very effective. I have a relative that's in the White House as an executive secretary and travels with either Barack or Michelle or Joe. And I get a lot of information as to who both sides respect. And Biden has as much respect as pretty much anybody on the Hill from everything I know. So I don't know. I don't know what he's up to and what he's going to do. He would take, I believe, a lot of votes. He'd split the vote with Hillary. Now, I don't know. I don't think he would take very much from Bernie. So I don't know what his plans are, and I'm very curious.
Well, go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah. I just want to say to Nick, I do apologise because actually thinking about it, you can never say no because external events, a week in politics can be an eternity. So I do think that those that control the Democratic Party think they've really got Bernie under control, but external events might prove that level of marginalisation and control doesn't really work out the way they hope. When it comes to Biden, he's the type of guy that you would want to have a drink in a bar. He seems a really nice guy. You would just get if you became president, you would get another 4 years of what we've had with Obama the past 8 years, which is corporate interest, declining living standards, more war, more death, more waste of American armed forces lives, more widows, more anguish, more of the same. So if you want to buy into that, it'd be the perfect candidate, wouldn't he?
I agree with Jonathan for the most part. Biden is a gaffe machine. I mean, we forget all the racist, sexist comments that he's made over the course of his career. And the guy has always been a henchman. He's been an attack dog for various administrations. He was the guy that launched a vicious attack against Bork. He launched a vicious attack against Clarence Thomas during his confirmation proceedings. What? So I don't think the guy is particularly intelligent. And there was a reason why his last attempt at a presidential campaign failed, and he's going to fail again.
Let me throw some in. We're going to go on a little bit on this last topic before we get on to the Democrat and Republican differences. On the Biden race, Jonathan, I do think you were right in a lot of different areas, and I agree with you. I can't believe I was laughing on some of those issues you're talking about because they're very serious. But here's the situation: they mentioned, I forgot which one.
Can I say something, Bill? We're on the Titanic. We're heading for the iceberg. The captain has said increase speed, and most of the population are talking about the dinner service not being that good.
That was the Titanic.
That's what the basic situation. Most of the population are talking about the next pop star or, whatever. And we're on the Titanic. We're heading for the iceberg, and we're actually ramming the speed up.
Let's talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to get in the race. He's going to get in the race. They're smart. There's two different elements in the Democrat Party. You've got the Clinton, like I said, Chicago Obama group, and you have Joe Biden. Joe Biden was extremely loyal the last 7 years to Obama. Obama being the first black president, extraordinarily loyal. He came in as a vice president, and as a vice president, if I was a Democrat, I'd say he did a great job. He's got a family who served in the military. He's balanced. He's been a politician for a long time. He knows politics inside and out with his crew. They're just holding back now, spending any money. Hillary's blowing through money left and right now. She's going through a lot of money. She's having to fight to maintain. She's having to put up some ads. She's going through a lot of money right now. So they're just draining her out. The other big thing is she's got and they said this on Meet the Press this morning, she has that big elephant being the FBI investigation, not being the Republican Party, but the FBI investigation hanging over her. So
she does.
We don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, if she's going to get in trouble for the email or not. I don't think it's about Benghazi. It's about the email and how it was handled and the security of the nation via that email. And if the laws were broken, the FBI has that case. And the Obama administration, if you look at what Obama said a couple weeks ago, or a week ago even, it was neutral to Hillary. And Biden's just holding back. So now if Biden gets in, Hillary's going to lose a lot of support. What's going to happen with Bernie Sanders, Biden, and Hillary?
Because Biden will not take any of Sanders' supporters. Sanders' supporters are solid, and they want nobody else.
I agree.
And he will split the vote. So I actually hope he does run. And if it comes down to the two, I'd much rather have Biden run than Hillary.
You know, it was interesting what Bernie said about the email. Enough of this email to make himself look good. But is there some tactic behind that and trying to blow off the email? Does Bernie want to run just against Hillary? Does he not want Biden to come in?
I couldn't answer that question.
I think he's got a deal with Hillary. I don't think he. I think he'd be very happy to maintain his power position, his appointment on many important committees, and I think I think it was almost prearranged. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it came out that his little thing about the emails that he mentioned in completely dismissing it was part of an arrangement with Hillary.
Well, we'll know by December 15th because a lot of states start requiring that you have to have all your registration. You have to go out in different states vary. You have to get so many signatures to get on the ballot in different states, or you have to buy into it. So you have to put your name on the state ballot by December 15th in many, many states. And in January, things will start happening. So before December 15th, that'll be like the end. I'm guessing somewhere between October, November, late November. Maybe that's when we're going to see him come in. Okay, Nick, question for you. Is Biden going to run? Yes or no?
Undecided.
If you had to guess, if you had to bet right now today, red or black, is he going to run?
Okay, 51-49, yes.
Okay, yes, 51. Okay, Jonathan.
I have no idea.
You got to give me a number. It's like playing roulette right now. You're out of Reno. You know it's a game.
30%.
You say that he's going to run 30%, so you don't think he's going to run. You're leaning against him.
Well, you got to take the factor of his death of his son and other personal factors as well, haven't you?
He also we know he wants to run. Rick, we're going to finish up with you. Is he going to run?
Absolutely.
Or not? Yeah, I think he's going to run too. Okay. We're going to see how that evolves each week, see how we come out. So finishing up, I thought they finished nice on Meet the Press. They talked about the differences between the Democrat and the Republicans and what they're talking about. They put words up there. Do everyone remember some of the words they put up?
Yes, that was a critical part of they emphasized, they put the biggest words, which were, for the topics of who talked about what and what the Republicans did and what the Democrats did. And the Republicans had so much infighting and name calling. And the Democrats, the biggest thing with the Democrats were guns.
Yeah, I put guns on the top.
Guns were right at the top.
Wall Street and Syria.
Wall Street and Syria, yep. And I believe the Russians are there to build a military base, to secure a military base. I don't think they're after the ISIS or any of the other things that they're talking about. I think that they're just there to secure a military base. And also...
And by the way, on the Republican side, it was taxes, Clinton immigration.
That's right. Yep. Hillary, and they're talking about, the Republicans were talking about the other party and about this fear of immigration, even though we're a country built on immigration.
So, we're a country built on bringing in 300,000 unescorted minors, 500,000 unvetted Syrian refugees. We're all for dumping 30,000 multiple convicted felons, pedophiles, murderers, and rapists who are illegal aliens into communities without notifying local authorities. Yeah, that's what built this country up.
Wait a second. Now let's talk about the differences. Republicans and Democrats. How do you feel the differences in in the debates right now? What are there any commonalities between the parties right now?
I don't see very many.
Neither do I. Especially where the middle, there are some similarities, but the part that you're hearing most about from the Republican is the right wing, and the part that you're hearing most about with the Democrats are the progressives. I'm a Progressive Democrat of America, PDA, and that, you're hearing much more about Bernie and much more about Trump and Cruz than you are the middle. So we are at polar opposites on just about every issue, other than we all want better governance.
Yeah. Hillary and Bush, of course, were the ones that everyone said were going to be the leaders in this whole group. Hillary's still there. Bush has disappeared now. And those are the establishment, the Hillary and Obama's establishment too, but definitely the Clintons and the Bush was the establishment.
I have a question. What do you guys think about Trump? And I'd like to read a quote right now. This was in People's Magazine, 1998, Donald Trump. If I were to run for president, I'd run as a Republican. They're the dumbest group of voters in the country. They love anything on Fox News. I could lie and they would eat it up. I bet my numbers would be terrific. Donald Trump.
What year was what year was that?
1998.
He said he's got so much out there like that. Rick, I can't figure out this.
Well, that's why I don't trust him, but I'm glad he's in the race because he is bringing up issues that both parties really don't want to talk about. So for that, I'm grateful. I'm glad that he's stimulating the conversation that everybody says we should be having. But he's never been my first choice, and I basically don't trust the guy because he, if you want to talk about flip-flopping, he's been all over
and he
everywhere.
Doesn't talk about issues, and when he does, it's the few that he does talk about are ridiculous.
Livestream says Trump is a tyrant. Thank you, Livestream. Livestream Lee.
Yeah, I think he's not real bright.
Everyone says that he will not be the nominee. I mean, not everyone. Apparently, 28% of the people believe he will.
Some ways I agree with that, Bill, but it's a bit like Bernie. I think he could, because external circumstances. He's an interesting character. He is a criminal. He
can't say that.
Well, he's been
not in jail. He's not convicted.
Well, yeah, right. But
he's had bankruptcies, though.
He's always been on that edge. It's very easy to make jokes of him, but there's a kind of sinister side. You saw these type of creatures in Yugoslavia before the Yugoslavian wars, and hundreds of thousands of people were murdered by these type of politicians that are prepared to say anything to get into power. I went back after our initial conversation. I went back to I see as the greatest American political philosopher, Sheridan Wallen, and the book that influenced me the most, which was Democracy Incorporated, and I reread it. And he predicted 15 years ago what we're seeing now, which is a corporate group of companies and a group of people that benefit from these large companies, the globalization and the total corruption of the American. 2 weeks ago, Jimmy Carter made a really quite bold statement. He made a statement that he thought that American politics had been totally corruptized, and oligarchy of top people now control the American political system. And it wasn't reported, but I thought it was a powerful statement from a former president to really say that the democratic process has just been totally corrupted. And I think unless you deal with that total corruption, you're not going to get any real results, no matter who you vote for.
Nick,
I think what Trump and what Carter was referring to, Trump is counting on what's happened, and that's the dumbing down of the American general public. You know, about 25 years ago, some of the Republicans realized they were outnumbered, and they did actually a very smart thing. They gathered all their resources and they bought up the media. And as you see, the media is putting out all of this nonsense on every which way, and they act like the American people are idiots. And, you know, look, who else would follow Trump but somebody that's not informed, somebody that's not really a part of the political system, somebody who's running scared, this fear that the media constantly puts into everybody. You know,
are you kidding me, Nick? The media is our sycophants of the progressive movement in America. Totally controlled, totally in the pocket of Obama and
Rick, would you say except for Fox?
And even Fox is
the six corporations that own 90% of the media are all conservative corporations. So what are you talking about, Rick?
Where are they? Where are they giving favorable coverage to the Republican Party? Where?
Well, I'll tell you what, though, the Republican Party, though, seems to be bending over at the leadership
I've seen
levels.
more of Trump on all of the news and in all the papers than I have of anybody else. And nobody's getting coverage like Trump.
Fox has gone after Trump. Megyn Kelly has been criticized because she's been so anti-Trump.
Yeah, and still it's Trump, Trump, Trump. You know, Willie Nelson once said to me, "No press is bad press."
Democrats are doing the same thing. All the other programs are doing the same thing about Trump, and they're all talking about, you know, how Trump is a crazy, how Trump is this, Trump is that. You even brought up Trump, quoting him from 1998. So everybody's talking about Trump. That's the thing. And what they're doing is they're saying enough of Trump already. You know, we don't want to talk about Trump.
I really, Rick, I do agree with a lot of the stuff you say, Rick, but where you get this, that somehow the media controlled by the progressive move, depends what you call progressive. If you really think Obama is a progressive, I don't know, this is what gets me about...
I think Obama's a fascist.
What gets me about the riot is the libertarian, why they keep going on. Obama's just been totally bought by the corporate interests that fund him, and he does their bidding. And this business about this constant talk about Obamacare, it just, you know, it has made a load of money for a load of drug companies and a load of health providers, private health providers. It was written by their lobbyists. It was pushed by them. It's got nothing to do with us, the progressives. We knew it was a load of crap. We had to go along with it because the riot was so crazy about it.
You know, I agree with you, Jonathan. The problem is that Obama identifies himself as a progressive. Hillary identifies herself as a progressive.
But you know they're not.
By their own definition,
Obama's always considered himself a moderate and calls himself a moderate. I have never heard him say that he's a progressive. And I've been in the progressive caucus for decades. And I have never
like Bill Ayers is a progressive, like the Reverend Wright is a progressive, like Axelrod's a progressive.
Well, you're talking about Obama, and I have never heard Obama associate himself with the progressives ever.
Well, he's not a moderate.
It sure seems like it to me, from my perspective.
But it depends what you call a moderate, Rick. He just does what his corporate owners, his handlers.
About to sell us down the road with.
They found him. They built him up. They sold him as a brand. Hope. Kept talking about bloody hope. Never talked about anything else. People thought, he spoke so well, that he was branded, the marketing, the PR, and his handlers that handled it. And he only got in last time because your candidates were so scary and so godforsakingly terrible.
Well, I think they were intimidated. I think they were afraid. I think they were weak.
There was no real support for Obama. He just got in because he was the best of the worst.
Like Kennedy said, sometimes the choices are terrible or worse. That's the truth.
I think the American people are basically tired of choosing between the lesser of two evils.
Well, yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that. And that's why we're going to have Bernie.
But the right keep getting their knickers in a twist about Obama being he's not progressive. I don't really know where you get this from.
I never said he was progressive. I said he's a moderate.
I meant Rick, actually, Nick. Sorry.
Yeah, I never have seen him call himself a progressive ever. And
I don't understand it in American politics where you brand people something and it's so obvious that they're not it. I just wish the real right really did. There are a number of subjects that are serious subjects that the right's position, it's not exactly my cup of tea, but they're totally justified in pointing out the weaknesses of the progressive left. They're totally right around personal freedom, about, various subjects. They've got total justification, but they go on about Obamacare, which is a corporate beast anyway. It's a total made up thing from corporate America.
That's not the way it's been sold.
They're not going to do that, are they? They're not going to do it that way.
Maybe we have a problem with definitional labels, but, I do tend to agree with you, Jonathan. I think everybody here, from Bill to Nick to you to me, and some of the comments that I see about the show and about the things that we've said, is we all agree that there's a lot of corruption in government. We all agree that there's a lot of corporatism, crony capitalism,
absolutely,
and all of the things and all of the trends that we believe are an anathema to true democracy.
Well, the truth of the matter, the five largest banks under Obama, under his bought presidency, their control over the financial markets have grown. Their share of the whole has grown. These five financial companies should have been broken up day one.
Their heads should have been put in jail like they did in Finland, and now their economy is booming. What we've done is made them richer and more powerful, and it's an abomination. It's an absolute abomination. I can't don't understand why the American people are allowing this to happen. It's like sheep. They're like sheep.
I don't understand why the American people are aren't picking up the pitchforks and torches and marching on Washington.
I know why. I know why, because it's easy just to point at the leadership. Most of the American population, there's an increasing number of older people that are either on state or either on the Fed state pensions. They're doing, if you're just living off your capital, you're being decimated because of the interest rates. You're basically facing bankruptcy. But if you're getting a nice paycheck from the federal government and you bought your house, you paid for your house and it's starting to go up, you're bought off. There's so many people in America and Britain are just bought off.
In the last 10 years, 50% of the income...
They're outside the system and they're innocent. We're all part of the problem.
Well, 57% of the income in the last 10 years has gone directly to the 1%. That's the income equality. That's what we're facing, and that needs to turn around.
Nick, isn't that incredibly ironic that the Democrats rail against income inequality? Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have made it a feature of their campaigns to talk about.
Oh, Hillary only recently.
Income inequality. And yet, under this administration, that gap that everybody is whining about and screaming about has increased. The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poorer.
Exactly.
And
you know what? That's the commonality I think both sides are talking about.
I agree. And it's got to change.
Both sides are talking about what you just said, Rick. That's the issue.
That is the issue.
That's the issue. That why Americans are so torqued off right now. They're gonna. Who knows what's going to happen for sure. But right now, there's pressure against the middle. The middle has been taken over by the special interest. for the last 20 years. And the right and the left come together in the middle, and there's not much difference between the Republicans and the Democrats at that level, period. That's just Bill Conrad's personal opinion from the other side.
But look at the Democratic Party look at it, how it deals with the teacher union. Look how it deals with the firemen. Look how
those are local level issues for the most part.
They won't deal with corruption. I'm not prepared to stand for corruption. I don't care where it comes from. Okay,
we're coming up on our hour now, so we're going to finish up here. I do have one last question. I want to make one last comment. When I was in Afghanistan early in my first tour in Jalalabad, I was a lieutenant colonel, and as a reservist, I'd gone back in active duty on a special mission. Most of my classmates were colonels or higher, some generals, and some right below me who I knew. And I'd have discussions with these West Pointers who'd been there their entire life in the Army system, and they felt that government was inherently corrupt. And I, since I'd been elected city council and vice mayor of a city of 200,000 and seen our government, I don't think our government is inherently corrupt. We have balances and checkpoints all the way through it. That said, I do believe Washington, at all levels, there is oligarchy and controls, but our Constitution, our form of government, our state system, as opposed to federal, will keep us in balance. I have faith that that'll happen, but I do believe we swung way over too close to the special interests, to the Washington elite, and that's one of the problems with America right now. But I believe are the people, I put trust in the people, the government, form of government that we have, our Constitution, and that it will come back the other way as long as we don't have fiscal failure. Fiscal failure is my biggest concern. As a civil military operations officer and studying threat to America early on with DETRA, the failure fiscally, especially in California and the big states, is a fear. That's a discussion for another day. Those are my comments. Hey, as we finish up, we're going to stay on so you can chit chat afterward. We're going to stop the recording in a few minutes. One last question. I didn't get the Democrat numbers. Everybody has those, but Trump is 24. Oh, first of all, thank you for everyone who's listening in right now. We thank you for all the comments. I noticed that a majority of people lean towards Trump while we're talking. So Trump had more followers right now. A couple of Bernie Sanders, mostly Trump and Bernie Sanders, were the folks watching the show. Didn't catch anybody for Hillary or anybody else. But Trump and Hillary Trump and Bernie Sanders were the people on the sidelines. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot more followers next year because we messed up the feed. Next week, we messed up the feed. But that said, okay, Trump was 24 this week. Carson's 23 per Meet the Press, and Cruz was 10. What do you think the numbers are going to be next week?
Probably the same. I don't think anything's going to happen.
I think Cruz might come up a little bit, not much. I think it's going to be a little closer.
I think the real person to watch is Ben Carson, who we haven't mentioned today on the whole show.
Right.
Didn't talk about Ben Carson is gonna supersede Trump.
Ben and Satan, the idea of evolution. Are you kidding me? I mean, are Americans that ridiculously stupid?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Give me a break. Oh, okay.
So, Jonathan, what was your opinion?
Well, actually, it is amazing. But Ben, he's drunk the same. He's the more outrageous at the present. They're all looking for money. They all need money. Money is the fuel of politics.
Unless you're the vice president, holding off, not having to run a campaign yet.
They should hire your bill. Basically, they all need money. They need publicity. They need money. Who knows? Carson needs money, so he's seen how Trump's getting more coverage. So he starts coming out with
Trump
this
is
stuff.
An advocate of you're fired. Sanders is an advocate of you're hired. Let's get some work done.
Hold that. Okay, right now we're going to talk about the Democrats and finish it up. The Democrats right now, Bernie Sanders, Hillary is leading Bernie, and then the vice president, Biden. That's sort of the order. I don't know what the exact numbers are this week. I didn't get those down. But what do you think is going to happen next week? Who's going to move where?
Well, I think that if, these polls that people are talking about, of course, if you look at what happened during the debate, I really don't understand how, with Bernie winning every single poll, every single one, how Hillary is still ahead. So I don't believe these polls. And I think the truth is going to come out here real soon, as to who is really the front runner. I think it's going to all change this week and the next couple of weeks. And I don't see Hillary has some real big gorillas on her back, and Bernie doesn't. So when all things are said and done, if Biden comes out, that's going to also take out Hillary. So we'll see. I think that very soon, in the next few weeks and months, that Bernie's going to jump and Hillary's going to go down. And I don't care what people seem to think about the corporate or the media and all the money. I think that's turning around. And I think Americans are incredibly fed up with what's happening. We're all sick at heart and sick to our stomachs about the state right now of our government. Everybody's tired. No matter, you'll agree, Rick, Jonathan, none of us are satisfied. None of us are happy. And something's got to happen. Something
Rick, we're going to go with you.
Has to happen.
Yeah. Dick, we're going to sign off. Jonathan's going to sign off first, then Rick, then you, and then me. So we're going to go in that order for comments. But Rick, go ahead and tell us what you think about the Democrats right now. What do you think the numbers are going to do next week?
I think they're going to remain basically stable where they are right now. I think there's I think the powers that be are basically propping up Hillary, and they're going to continue to do so. The DNC has already expressed its preference for Hillary. The way the debate, and I agree with Nick on this, I think the way the debate was handled, and even the way Bernie comported himself during the debate, basically supported Hillary. I think she's the anointed one. And I think there are other aspects that we've seen going on, including a DOJ. I don't think the DOJ is going to do anything with the FBI investigation. That ultimately is going to wind up determining whether Hillary succeeds or not. I think the FBI's report is going to be buried if it's critical of Hillary. I don't think the DOJ is going to do anything. And I think that she's going to ultimately wind up being the nominee.
Okay, Jonathan, your thoughts?
Well, I do agree, but I also agree with Nick. I think what Rick, like I say, a week in politics is a big, and there's so much stuff on here. There's so much, really serious investigative journalism. If resources were really thrown at it, there's plenty of stuff you can dig up about her. She's a time bomb waiting to explode, basically. But also there's external forces, we don't control everything in our world. A lot of it is we just adapt to what happens out there. So who knows?
Okay, so you don't really know what it's going to do. So I think, this is Bill, on the Democrat side, Bernie's going to move up a little bit. Hillary's going to probably, with the hearings this week, probably won't do well. And Biden's going to still stay out for a week or two, maybe 3 weeks longer. So that's me until next week. So next week, 10 o'clock, we'll be up. And instead of 9:15, we're going to try to go live at 10. So we'll be coming up online about 9:45. We thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to leave Nick on for a couple seconds to close down the seats. Thanks, Jonathan. Jonathan from wp-tonic.com and also mail-right.com. Those are his products. He's a developer in Reno, Nevada. He's from England, of course. Got a long, interesting story. We're going to do a timeline. We have a timeline you can listen to. So thank you, Jonathan, for coming on.
Peace.
Hey, everyone, get Jonathan get him up over 300. Everyone give him some.
Thank you, John.
Peace, brothers.
Thanks,
give him some numbers. Everyone give him some numbers. Got to get him over 300, folks. Everyone over 300. Okay. Aloha.
Copy.
Okay. So, Rick, thank you.
Thank you.
Former recovering attorney from California.
That's
recovering assembly member. We didn't really get to talk about your race for assembly. You ran against the speaker of the state of Nevada 2 years ago. And, coming from California, we never run against other Republicans. But that said, I was shocked this year, and we'll talk about that later, to see what the Republicans did in Nevada with taxes. They were the best Democrats going, weren't they?
Absolutely.
Couldn't beat them.
Top down.
So thank you for running. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, guys.
Rick, you're over 300, so you're good to go. Well, Nick, it's just you and me
Okay.
as we sign off. Thank you for coming on. Hey, a couple of points, Nick. He's a great artist. You got some things going on art-wise down in with Chapman right now?
Yes, they just ordered 13 pieces from me. I have several pieces on campus, and I've just made a proposal for a monumental piece. They've just are finishing up a $240 million performing arts center, and it's gorgeous. So I'm hoping that I can build a huge, beautiful piece. We'll see how that happens. We'll see how that goes. But thank you, Bill, so much.
And you can go to askhernandez.com to find Nick's links.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And one last question. You talked about Willie Nelson. We didn't really mention your son, Nicholas Hernandez, for Common Sense Band, some of those connections in music. Longtime musician, multi-generation, Southern California.
Yes, well, my son is a fabulous musician, Virgin recording artist, sold out every house of blues in the world, from China across the States to Europe. And he is
Common Sense Band, Nick-I.
Great friends. We're all friends with Willie Nelson and lots of other world famous musicians. And they're really great. I'm real proud of my son.
And you have art with the Clintons.
Yeah, a couple of
We'll go into a lot of detail. And you're Bernie Sanders supporter. Well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate you coming on. See you next week at 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Look forward to it, Bill.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for listening in. I'm going to cut the recording. If anyone wants to come up a little bit and talk among yourselves, that's fine. I got to do a little work, but we thank you very much. Till next week at 10 o'clock, you can find us right now, you can go to podcastershome.com. You can go to, this will be up. We're actually going to do a test for iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You'll find that recording up at politicsofsuccess.com. And again, I'm Bill Conrad, coming to you from Reno. Sometime I'll tell you about my background. It's unique, both in politics as a reservist and in business. Well, thanks very much. I'm going to go ahead and leave this open if anybody wants to come up. Got to do a little work right now. So we'll open this up. Anybody want to come up? Let me pause the recording, and I'll actually, I already paused the recording. So anyway, if anybody wants to come up there, thanks for coming up. And also, if you go to, we'll have a place where if you want to come on the panel, we want to open up seats for folks on the panel too. So we'll have that up on the site for those who want to put in their background. And we'd like to bring other people on the weekly panel. I think it'll be interesting. It should grow as we move into the political season. So thanks, folks. Again, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. It looks like no one wants to come up.